is more of his focus. But you might disagree. I know the defense does. Join me now to discuss this case. Got two great criminal defense attorneys. Janet Johnson, all the way to your right, coming to us from the great state of Florida. And criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Randy Zellin. Randy, great to see you again. But it will be ladies first, Randy. Try to do that as much as I can. Janet, let me begin with you. How am I supposed to believe this story about this tunnel vision to save the children when this defendant is out dirty dancing and groping and having sex or alleged sex, or maybe he did, maybe he didn't, I don't know, with the victim's wife?
Well, there's a convenient disorder for that. He had a delusion, this erotomatic delusion, where he thought he was having an affair with her, and that would be consistent with that behavior. The only problem is it's also consistent with having an actual affair, which I think the experts basically agreed. If he was really having sex with her, he wouldn't be delusional. He would actually be having an affair. So it does kind of throw some doubt on that, but it also is consistent with apparently this disorder where he's just attached sexually to this woman, so much so that he thinks these are his children.
Huh. Randy, you know, I generally approach, as a former prosecutor, right? I generally approach these insanity pleas, these insanity cases with a lot of skepticism when the experts are not agreeing. Now, we haven't heard from the prosecution experts yet. That will be in a rebuttal case. But I'm going to assume that they don't agree with the defense experts in this case, okay? Out to save the children, but he's spending all this actual time with the victim's actual wife at actual hotels and actual bars.
Well, look, let's take a step back, and I think we can agree that if the defense expert agreed with the prosecution expert, there wouldn't be a trial, because it would either be he's okay, which means he's going to be convicted, or he's not okay, which means he's going to get off by reason of mental disease or defect. But here's the way I approach it, and I think, Vinny, you're dead on with, forget about being a former prosecutor, just human beings. Forget about everything other than, I think a juror looks at the initial underlying act and says, okay, either the fact pattern is such where I can understand somebody doing this and knowing what they were doing, and since I'm not a big fan that jurors believe in the presumption of innocence to begin with, that they can look at a defendant and say, I don't think he did anything wrong. In fact, I know he didn't do anything wrong. The prosecution's got to prove it to me. I think the same thing goes for the notion of insanity. They look at the act and say, hey, only a lunatic, only a nut job would assassinate someone in broad daylight in front of a daycare center, and there is no way that anybody with any marble, any elevator that went to the top floor would actually do that and know that it was wrong. And I think that that's where they start.
Janet, one thing I noticed throughout this trial, and I think everyone notices, the defendant inside the courtroom, the jury is going to notice him, right? He's got the sweater on. Different sweater, different days. He wore this one a lot. What does that present to this jury? Does that, I mean, isn't that something you would think about? You know, the appearance of your client who you're saying is insane, and yet here he looks like a mild-mannered, I don't know.
Right. Well, I actually had a trial where the state tried to suggest your client can't be insane because, look, he's sitting there and he looks normal. I got a mistrial on that issue because you can't shift the burden in that respect and say, you know, maybe he's on medication. I mean, he can't get up on the stand and have to explain why he appears normal. You know, that sweater, I think, is an effort to make him look, you know, a little immature. I mean, for an adult to be wearing a sweater, you would expect him in a shirt and tie. But I think that's why he couldn't take the stand, because if he testified and he wasn't acting insane, whether he was medicated now, presumably if he had a condition, they would have medicated him if he was such a great harm to the community that he would kill other people or himself. But, you know, you don't want him on the stand appearing to be, you know, basically a malingerer, like he's lying about everything, and here he is behaving normally in court.
Randy, the big part of the defense case, obviously, are the experts, and they rolled out 4 experts. Is that an attempt to say, hey, we've got 4 people saying this, so therefore their opinions should hold more weight because we're going to have more experts than you're going to have?
Look, I could not agree with you more, Vinny. So much of this is a matter of appealing to a bunch of strangers, appealing to their common sense. And oftentimes in life, we do look at quantity as much as we look at quality. If I have more than you, then I should be the one to win. If I can get more people to come in and say, yes, I agree with the defense, then remember, you only need one juror to disagree with everybody else, and you're going to get a mistrial. Get everybody to agree, and you're going to get what you're looking for, which is you're not guilty by reason of insanity. So yes, I got more than you, therefore I'm more right than you are.
Janet, the other problem the defense has here is this guy, there are no independent witnesses coming in and saying, you know, this guy was just acting so strange. And one very important witness who said this guy was not acting so strange or seemed like he was insane or crazy or mentally ill is Andrea Snyderman, who apparently spent a lot of time with this guy.
Right, and you have a sister saying, you know, we were both abused. You know, begs the question: you didn't kill an innocent man in broad daylight. How come you're okay and your brother's not? You know, the only explanation I think is he's such a high functioning individual. He's obviously very bright. He's very successful. He was able to compartmentalize. But, you know, experts will say if you have bipolar disorder, it's not a switch you can turn on and off. You know, you wouldn't be able to behave in a totally rational way at work. And then, you know, in your spare time, you turn into someone with bipolar disorder. So that is a problem. But again, you also have this presumption that if you did something so crazy in broad daylight, so out of character, something clearly is wrong with you. And I think jurors are going to be receptive to that concept.
All right, Janet and Randy are going to stick around. Now, to the outsider, it appears